Hello and welcome to the lesson on visual displays of data. So today what we're looking at is being able to organize data and then use a spreadsheet to create a graphical display of the data. So it's just an extension of what we've been working with. I'm just going to show you some of the other options that are available in Google Sheets that will allow you to show when you're working on the project, show some alternative graphs to represent the data you collected. A couple things, terminology, you should have them in front of you. Frequency is the first one. Frequency, number of times an event occurs um, in a given category. And like I said, I'll show you what that exactly entails when we do the examples. Frequency table. So it's a table listing a variable together with the frequency of each value, so how often it occurs. Cumulative frequency. So this is a running total. So basically we're taking the frequency table and we're going to create a new column and we're going to do a running total. So how many times events have occurred. And finally, relative frequency. It's a percentage. So if something happened, if you had 10 pieces of data and 3 times the answer was B, the relative frequency is 30%. So we're just going to convert the number of times something occurs to a percentage, and the spreadsheet does that lickety split. And finally, a histogram. Histogram, it's a special form of bar graph in which the areas represent the frequency that an item or a variable occurs. So histogram, bar graph, they're similar. There is some nuances between them, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But you can think of it as a bar graph at this point in time. So moving into the first example. So what the first example is looking at here, we have got, it's not well spaced anymore. Hopefully yours is spaced a little bit better. But the following survey is what day students were born. And we want to use the data to complete the following. So basically, creating a frequency graph. So you've probably seen this before. And your frequency graph really starts as a tally. Okay, so this is going back, probably did these in grade 7 and 8, but we're going to create a tally. Okay, so I'm just going to create Monday. Actually, let's do it this way. Headings day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Oops. Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, which you can't see. And then go back up top here, scroll across, and this is where the frequency comes in. Okay, oops. So our frequency is how often something occurred. So we want to look through, we're going to create a tally chart to list how often each of these particular days occurred. And I'm hoping, like I said, in your note it's spread out a little bit more. Mine, for some reason, squashed together. So our tally chart basically starts up or sets up like this. So if I take a look, I'm just going to cross out as I go. So Monday occurred once, Friday occurred twice, Wednesday occurred once, and so on and so forth. So Tuesday 3 times. And at this point, I'm going to jump ahead and ruin the ending for you because you don't need me to go through and continue up the tally for you. So I went through and I completed the tally chart here for us. So with the tally chart, you can see I finished my tally, then I did my totals. So now I know for a particular day, Monday, 4 people were born, Tuesday, 6, so on and so forth. So now what we're going to do, we're going to transfer this data to our Google Sheets because that spreadsheet program will do the majority of the work for us. So I'm going to bring up that sheet. And if you take a look inside that first journal, that file is in there. The visual data is shared with you, so it's already entered here. So I've transferred my tally chart from the smartboard file into there, and like I said, it's there for you. So first thing we're looking at, so create a frequency graph. Well, that is checked, that's done. Next we want to create a histogram. So creating a histogram is basically using your spreadsheet software. We're going to insert a chart. Now we want a bar graph because that really is our histogram. So it is right now, it is all set up for us. You can choose whether you want it, what orientation you want it. The X and Y axes, remember, would switch if we're looking at it sideways. So technically, the days are still the X axis, but we've tilted it on its side. It's up to you what format. You can rotate the text so that it shows up a little better. For this particular one, I would recommend this format just because it's a little bit cleaner, but you don't have to. It's always up to you. It's kind of a personal preference approach here. So I'm going to go in that direction. You can customize everything. Days students were born. All right, you can clean up your information. We really don't need the legend at all. All right, because it's a frequency graph, so it's kind of self-explanatory in that sense. On the horizontal axes, even though it's the y-axis, we're going to put frequency, and then on the vertical, we will put day born. And there we are. There is our fantastic bar graph. So we can go insert, and it would be easy to insert into your project, your document. It's all set to go. So I'm just going to move that over a little bit. So there's question B question B taken care of. Now, if you were to copy and paste that, so if you were to select the pull down and say copy, it will paste into Google Docs very easily. It does not paste into my smartboard file very easily, so I can't actually put it in here because of that, so I won't bother. So I'll just simply record B, and I'll just say C spreadsheet. All right. Question C, what are we looking at now? Question C wants us to do a pictograph. Pictograph, a little bit more challenging as far as using the software. You can decide whether you want to go through and use the spreadsheet program or whether you just want to do this by hand. But I'll show you what it looks like. And actually, what I'm going to do is there is an option here for the pictograph. I've decided to do it a little bit different. Pictograph basically is a pictorial representation. I found something that I'm happy with. If you go into more, okay, so more graphs, and we hit more again. This is kind of an interesting one with the gauges because it kind of shows up a little bit showy in terms of the days. So for me, it's not your traditional pictograph, but it's not something that you would normally create. It's kind of something that you do want to be able to be aware of and be able to read. So my gauge, I'm going to go 0 for the minimum value, and my maximum value, when I look back to the tally, it never went over 8, so I'm just going to put a 10 in. And what it does, it's an easy representation for someone, for your average reader to take a look at and say, oh, wow, most people were born on Tuesday based on the gauge because it's a visual representation. They don't actually have to go into looking at the actual values. So I know this isn't quite what you'd call the your average pictograph, but I'm quite happy using that as our representation. Something easy. Again, software sheet does it for us, and it's still something that I think is representative. It does clearly show, which day is more commonly or people are commonly born on, which allows us to come back here. And again, all my answers are going to be see the spreadsheet. So I'm just showing you the different options within the spreadsheet on how to represent your data and how to organize it. So where are we now? So got a pictograph, pie graph or a circle graph. So again, going back here, we're going to highlight the data, insert chart, and there it is right there, the pie graph, and voila, you have to love the software. Makes a very nice representation or a very nice job. So days students are born. There we go. Titles changed. Days are there, and it shows you where it is. You can do some other stuff here with the slice. You can put values in instead of percentages. You put the labels in. You can go with nothing. What I would do is if um, if you're printing this off and it's not in color, it probably wouldn't hurt just to go with your labels, um, just because the legend doesn't show up quite as nice. So it's really up to you. It depends on what, if you're printing it in color, I'm quite happy with the percentages, but it's up to you in your application. And I mean, if we're submitting everything electronic, everything's going to be in color anyway. So feel free to leave it in that format. All done. And again, it's representing the same. Whoops, we don't want to make it too small. We lose kind of what we wanted. You can see that it represents that in just a different fashion. So all three of these graphs, if I kind of center on them, they're representing the same amount of data in a different fashion. So you're kind of picking the one that best suits your situation and you feel will most appeal to a reader. All right, and that's the whole point of visual displays of data. So that allows me to say that that one's done. Determine relative frequency. Now, relative frequency, I told you, was a percentage. So I'm going to go back to our spreadsheet, and this is going to be my relative frequency graph. So in order to do relative frequency, I need to know how many people I was dealing with. So I'm going to go equals sum, and that will add up all the people that were interviewed or answered the question. So I had 32 people. Oops. Got to be careful here. I don't want my graph changing. So equals sum bracket 32. So I'll put down here the sum. So your relative frequency, the formula is exactly this. It's equal to the value divided by your total. Now, when you go to copy and paste that, if you try to copy and paste that value down, you're going to get divide errors, because what's happening is that every time it's going to the next column in both cases. So it's going to the Tuesday column, but it's also going to the one under the 32. So what we're going to do, we're going to delete that, and we go back to this one. And if you put dollar signs around the B, it tells it, the dollar sign says stay on B, stay on 11. So it makes it a constant. All right, so now if I copy and paste it down, there are my numbers. Now, relative frequency, I would like it as a percentage. So we can go in there and we can format. And Google Sheets is really nice that way. You highlight the numbers in question, and up here it has more formats, and you can increase or decrease the decimals. It's up to you. So 2 decimal places is going to be fine for me. More format. So here we go. We have all our options, whether it's scientific, percent, just a number. So I'm going to go with a percentage, and it displays it very, very nice, just like that. So again, relative frequency, you need to know the sum, and you need to divide each individual value by that, and you need to put those dollar signs in. So I'm going to insert that over here under, what are we on here? So D, B, C, D, C spreadsheet. And E, determine relative frequency. I'm just going to put the formula. Relative frequency is equal to value. So your X value divided by number of data. And when you enter it into a spreadsheet, so for a spreadsheet, oops. Don't forget your dollar signs. So you would put equals the cell divided by dollar signs and your 2 values. Okay, once you do that a couple times, you get the hang of it. I'll finish this example up in the next video.